Azure Cost Optimization for Startups, 7 Tactics that Work. So, Azure Cost Optimization for Startups. It's something a lot of people ask about, and today we're going to walk through it step by step. Now, next up, Tactic 1, activate Azure Cost Management before you touch anything else. Most startups skip this step because it feels administrative. That's a mistake. Azure Cost Management Plus Billing is a free dashboard inside the Azure portal that shows exactly where every dollar is going, broken down by resource, resource group, subscription, and tag. Without it, Cloud Cost Optimization for Startups is guesswork. When you open it for the first time, you'll likely find a few surprises: dev/test VMs running 24/7 that nobody uses on weekends, storage accounts accumulating data from old deployments, and outbound data transfer charges that weren't in anyone's original estimate. Tags are the most underused feature in Azure Cost Management for Startups. Assign tags like, and to every resource. Once tags are in place, you can filter cost reports to see exactly how much your production stack costs versus your development environment. Many teams discover their dev environment costs more than production, and that's usually fixable within a single sprint. Next up, moving on to Tactic 2, Azure Reserved Instances cut your compute bill by up to 72%. If you have any VMs or SQL databases running continuously, this is the single biggest lever for cloud cost management on Azure. Reserved instances let you commit to 1 or 3 years of usage in exchange for a steep discount up to 72% compared to pay-as-you-go pricing, according to Microsoft's Azure Reserved VM Instances documentation. The trade-off is real: you're committing upfront, which feels uncomfortable at the early stage. But erase the math. A standard _D2S_V3 VM in East US costs roughly $0.096 per hour on pay-as-you-go, or about $840 per year. A 1-year reserved instance for the same VM drops that to approximately $510, $330 saved on a single VM. Run 4 of those and you've saved over $1,300 annually without changing a single line of code. For a deeper look at how this decision plays out across different VM families, our guide on reducing cloud costs by 40% with Azure Reserved Instances walks through the full selection framework. Let's talk about Tactic 3, set up Azure budget alerts so overruns don't and #39. Blindside you. This takes about 10 minutes to configure, and it has saved startups from unexpected $4,000 bills. Azure Budget Alerts send an email when your spending hits a set percentage of your monthly budget. Configure this under Cost Management Budgets. Erase the setup process. The 50% threshold sounds early. It's intentional. If you hit half your monthly budget in the first week of the month, that's a signal something is misconfigured, a runaway process, and accidentally left on large VM, or a data egress spike. Catching it at 50% gives you time to react before it becomes a real financial problem. Let's talk about now, Tactic 4, right-size your virtual machines with Azure Advisor. Azure Advisor is a free recommendation engine built into the Azure portal. For Azure Cost Optimization for Startups, the Cost tab in Advisor is the most immediately actionable feature available at no extra charge. It analyzes your resource usage over the past 7, 14, or 30 days and flags VMs consistently running below 5% CPU and 20% memory utilization. The recommendations are specific. Advisor might tell you, resize standard _D4S_V3 to standard _D2S_V3 and save $112 per month. You can accept the recommendation directly from the portal without any manual reconfiguration. A pattern that comes up repeatedly with startup teams: engineers pick VM sizes during initial setup based on estimated peak load, then never revisit them. 6 months later, the app has settled into a predictable usage pattern, but the VMs are still sized for worst-case scenarios from day one. Next up, moving on to Tactic 5, autoscaling eliminates the cost of idle Azure resources. Pay-as-you-go pricing only works in your favor if you're actually scaling down during low traffic periods. Most startups configure infrastructure for peak load and leave it there, paying for capacity that sits idle roughly 80% of the time. Azure App Service, AKS, and Azure VM Scale sets all support autoscaling. The configuration logic is the same across all three. For a startup with business hours traffic, running a minimum of one instance outside those hours versus three during peak hours can cut compute costs by 40 to 50% with no impact on user experience. For a team paying $1,500 per month in compute, that's $600 to $750 per month back into the budget without a single code change. Next up, moving on to Tactic 6, use Azure and #39. Free tier and dev/test pricing intelligently. Azure has a free tier that most people treat as a temporary onboarding offer and then forget about entirely. The Azure free account includes 12 months of popular services plus always free tiers, Azure Functions, Azure Blob Storage, Azure Cosmos DB, and more. For startups in active development, structuring your architecture around always free limits can eliminate entire service line items from your monthly bill. Beyond the free tier, dev/test pricing is one of the most underused Azure cost reduction strategies for bootstrapped startup cloud costs. If you have a Visual Studio subscription which comes included with many Microsoft partner programs, you can run dev and test workloads at a significant discount. Windows VMs in dev/test subscriptions don't carry the Windows OS licensing cost, which can reduce those VM costs by 35 to 40%. The rules to know before you set this up. Next up, let's talk about Tactic 7, optimize Azure storage tiers and outbound data transfer. Storage and networking costs are where Azure bills grow quietly, often without anyone noticing until a finance review. Two specific areas to audit regularly as part of any Azure cost optimization for startup strategy. Storage tiers. Azure Blob Storage has 4 access tiers: hot, cool, cold, and archive. Most startups default everything to hot, which costs approximately $0.018 per gigabyte per month. Moving infrequently accessed data to cool or archive cuts storage costs significantly when you're accumulating large data volumes. The caveat: retrieval costs are higher on cooler tiers, so match the tier to your actual access frequency before migrating large datasets. Outbound data transfer. Azure charges for data leaving the Azure network. A startup streaming media files from Azure Blob Storage to end users in a different region pays for both storage retrieval and egress. Azure CDN or Azure Front Door can reduce origin egress costs by serving cached content from edge nodes, typically reducing per-request data transfer costs by 50 to 60%. Next up, let's talk about putting these Azure cost optimization tactics together. These 7 tactics work individually, but they compound when applied together. A startup running $3,000 per month in Azure spend that switches stable compute to reserved instances, right-sizes VMs per advisor recommendations, and moves cold data to archive storage can realistically land at $1,800 to $2,100 per month, a 30 to 40% reduction without any architectural rework. The pattern that separates startups that control their Azure spend from ones that don't is review cadence. Monthly advisor checks, monthly budget reviews, and a quarterly reservation review are 3 recurring habits that cost nothing except time. For startups thinking about security alongside cloud cost management on Azure, Azure Cloud Security for SMBs, 7 proven practices covers the controls that pair well with cost governance, because a misconfigured open storage account is both a security liability and, often, a cost one. Next up, let's talk about conclusion. Azure cost optimization for startups doesn't require an enterprise FinOps team or a cloud architect on staff. It requires the right tools, a monthly review habit, and the willingness to act on what the data shows. The 7 tactics here: activating cost management, buying reserved instances for stable workloads, setting budget alerts, right-sizing with advisor, enabling autoscaling, using free and dev/test pricing, and optimizing storage tiers give you a complete toolkit for meaningful cost reduction. If you're not sure where to start, open Azure Advisor today and check the cost tab. Most teams find $200 to $500 in low-effort savings in the first session. Implement those, then come back for the next layer. Cloud cost optimization compounds. Small wins every month add up to real savings over a year.